Hey folks, welcome to week 13 of Visual Design. How is everybody? Hope you're all doing well, taking good care of yourselves. All right, so this week we are going to focus primarily on our first vector-based project. Actually, it's our second vector-based project. You guys already did the pieces, parts, pieces project. We tricked out the house, which is very exciting and all came out really nice. Now we're going to move into our second vector project, which is a vector celebrity portrait. Now, it was mentioned in last week's syllabus entry, but I didn't really get into it in the lecture because we had so many other things to go over in terms of typography and Illustrator. So hopefully you guys spent a lot of time playing with the typography tools and getting used to that environment. Now let's take a look at that over here at the syllabus. So week 13, we would normally meet April 21st and 23rd. We, of course, are continuing to work online, and here from the back end of week 12 was the Project 3 Vector Celebrity Portrait. Now, you probably saw it already because it was in the syllabus, but I just want to take a little time today to go over the assignments, and you guys will be able to work on that all week. So it's pretty much your one and only goal this week is to work on Project 3. Now, of course, the first thing you're going to have to do is pick a celebrity, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Now, some other things this week, you'll notice that there is a quiz this week. Quiz number 4. No, you didn't miss a quiz. We deleted quiz number 3, so really there are still only 3 quizzes for this entire class. I just didn't bother renumbering them. So that is our typographic anatomy quiz. That is going to pop up on Canvas sometime this week and will be available. I'm going to extend the deadline to get it done. It'll be available on Canvas for a period of time, so be sure to check it. Take the quiz. It's completely multiple choice. You can take it directly on Canvas under quizzes, and don't worry about it. It's going to be pretty open-ended. And of course, you do have the typographic anatomy handout from last week that we went over. So since we're working online, it's sort of an open book quiz at this point. But anyway, I just really want you guys to get familiar with the anatomical structures of letter forms. And so the quiz will help with that. So don't worry about it too much. So treat it as an open book quiz. Again, check for it on Canvas. It'll be available. Now, the other major topic this week was Photoshop and Illustrator preparing files for the web. Had we been meeting in person, we would have gone over some examples of this, but it's a really difficult thing to do here in a presentation. It would just be a very long presentation, and you'd probably fall asleep listening to my voice. So instead, all I'm going to ask you to do this week is under the week 13 folder, under Files, you're going to find this handout here, Preparing Images, which is this. This is a really great sort of pocket guide. It's only 10 pages long for preparing images for use in either PowerPoint, web production, or print publication. And it goes through everything in terms of what is resolution, how resolution affects memory size, physical size of a document versus memory size, and so on and so forth. Some of these things we've covered in class, like different color models, RGB and CMYK, but all of this is written from the point of view of being able to convert your PS files, PSD files, Photoshop document, or your AI files, Adobe Illustrator files, into something that can be published either for presentation, for the web, or for publication. Because remember, the files you're working in are preparatory files. They are specific to Photoshop or Illustrator, or if we were working in other programs like InDesign or XD, they have their own specific file types. But when you're delivering your work in Visual Design to either be published on the web or as a presentation or in print, you can't send Photoshop and Illustrator files. You have to send other types of files like high-resolution JPEGs or web-ready graphics or PDFs or a variety of other file types. And so this handout goes through all of that in a really easy-to-understand format. It's actually from the University of Michigan. It's a great handout. I've been using it for a while. So I just want you to read through this on your own and just get familiar with it. There's not going to be a test or a quiz about it. I just want you guys to know how this works. It's a really useful bit of information that will come in handy for you in the future. Okay, let's take a look at Project 3, which is going to be your primary focus this week. So Project 3, of course, is a vector celebrity portrait. You can find it in the Projects folder under Files, and the theme is monochromatic colors. Now, of course, we did talk about color models, And one thing that we're going to focus on with this is not only making a really interesting portrait of somebody who you consider to be a celebrity, but we're going to work in a monochromatic color. What's a monochromatic color? So it is all the colors, including the tints, the tones, and the shades of a single hue. Remember, hue is just another word for color. Those are represented on the color wheel, right? And so if you look over here at this example of a monochromatic red color palette, basically the main color is in the middle. That's just your standard red. And then as you add light to it, or if we're talking about a subtractive color system, if you're adding white to it, it gets lighter and lighter. And if you're adding darkness to it, it gets darker and darker. But regardless, these are all shades of red. So that's what your portrait is going to be done in, is all the shades of one color. So you get to pick the color. Maybe you pick a color that you feel is appropriate for the celebrity you chose. So monochromatic color schemes provide opportunities in art and visual communications as they allow for a greater range of contrasting tones that can be used to attract attention, create focus, and support legibility. They're also just interesting to look at. The use of a monochromatic color provides a strong sense of visual cohesion and can help support communication objectives through the use of connotative color. Connotative meaning that the color has a personality that's appropriate for the subject matter, right? If somebody in your portrait is very energetic and upbeat, like maybe an athlete or a dancer, then maybe you want to go for a bright, upbeat color. If they're sort of a laid back and chill kind of person, maybe then you go for a more relaxed color. Of course, this is all very subjective and up for opinion, but that's how color works, right? It is fairly subjective. The relative absence of hue contrast can be offset by variations in tone and the addition of texture, which we're going to do with the shapes we're going to make. So let's see, what are your directions? The first thing you're going to do is you're going to find a high resolution of a celebrity of your choosing. You make sure you pick a large photo. If you go to Google Images, make sure you're searching for something that's larger than 2 megapixels. Make sure you're picking a nice high quality photo to work from. Now, you can define celebrity however you want. So it could be a famous celebrity, right? It could be your Taylor Swifts or your Jennifer Lopez's of the world, or it could be, a more local celebrity like the mayor of your hometown. Or it could be not a human. It could be Kermit the Frog. I don't care. So you get to decide what is a celebrity, something that you're interested in, that you find kind of fun, that you're going to want to work on. Then you're going to open up a new document in Illustrator. The specifications are below. You're going to place your celebrity image, the photograph that you found, onto the first layer, just like we were placing the images of the ice cream cone and the Day of the Dead skull onto Illustrator to practice our tracing using the pen tool and the pencil tool. So you can use that same procedure to place your photograph. Okay, you can dim the transparency, lock the layer, turn it into a template. Then of course you're going to create a new layer, and then of course you can use as many layers as you need, and using the tools below to make your vector celebrity portrait. So you can use the pen tool, the pencil tool, any of the shape tools, all the things you've learned in Illustrator and have been playing with so far. Okay, so as you can see down here, you're going to use pen tool, line tool, pencil tool, selection tool, direct select, the color picker, and the stroke palette. Any other tools that you become comfortable with in Illustrator. Be sure to keep your layers organized, right? Name your layers, right? If you're doing a whole bunch of things for somebody's hair, name it hair. If they're wearing a piece of clothing, name it, shirt or whatever it is. Close all of your shapes, or at least as many as you can, so you can color them. And this is just one example of a vector celebrity portrait. We're going to look at a bunch more in a little bit. You want to be as detailed or as stylized as you want. So you can try to make it hyper realistic by putting in a ton of detail, or you can make it more graphical and stylized. It's entirely up to you. You get to put your artistic spin on your interpretation of this portrait. Remember, just because you are working from a photograph doesn't mean it has to look exactly like the photograph. That is simply your starting point. Now, you don't want to make it super simple, so certainly put some thought and work into it, but you get to decide on the style. Now, the specifications are right here. This is how you will name the project. And it is 12 inches by 12 inches, right? And you're going to work in CMYK color mode, and you can go from there. Okay, so now let's look at some examples of vector celebrity portraits. Now, these are sort of general examples here. We have the one from the handout, this woman here. You can see that if you zoom in on this, right, it's really just made up of a bunch of shapes overlapping each other. Notice how the colors go from sort of shadow to midtone to highlight and onwards. So establish those monochromatic colors to decide where the high and low points are in terms of light and dark, right? Now these shapes were mostly done with the pencil tool. You can see they're kind of blobbish looking, right? So they're loose. Whereas this example here, these were done more with the pen tool. You can see that they're more angular in nature, right? If we zoom in here, there's probably some pencil tool going on here. Tool 2, but a lot of this is done in a more angular nature. And of course, you can mix and match between the pencil and the pen tool. Now, again, you can define celebrity however you want. Could be this guy, right? This is done with a lot of sharp angles, pretty much all using the pen tool. Or it could be a little more flat and amorphic, and this lady here, who is maybe a celebrity only known to a few people. Now, whereas this one is very sort of flat and graphical, this next example is very detailed. As you can see when we zoom in here, there's a ton of shapes, right, overlapping each other. Obviously, the more detail you put into it, the longer it's going to take you, but I certainly encourage you to put in as much detail as you can. Now, all of these styles that are a result of using a vector graphics program like Illustrator gives the subject matter kind of a pop art feel, sort of like what Andy Warhol did years ago using silk screening and paint and inks and dyes. This is Andy Warhol's famous study of Marilyn Monroe. Now, here's some more examples. These are actually done by students from previous classes. This is these are actually not celebrities. This was a slightly different assignment where they had to do vector celebrity portraits of other students, but it's the same idea. So here's a great example of one here. What I like about these is they're free floating with no background. You don't have to put in a background. Just make sure that you have a very clearly defined shape to the head or the neck or whatever you're including. So this is another great one. This one is done really nicely. Now, you'll notice a lot of the examples I'm showing you are not monochromatic, so just pay attention to that yours is going to be monochromatic, but it's still the same procedure. Also, this one is cropped really interestingly, as they decided not to show the person's upper face. It's just sort of the nose down, focusing on this very funny earring that she was wearing. So you can also get creative about how you present the image. You don't have to show the photo exactly as it presents itself to you. Here's a monochromatic one. This one's all done in black and white, so you can see how that works. And then last but not least, this one here. All right, so hopefully this gives you some inspiration. These were a lot of fun to do. I will tell you the key to doing vector portraits is to stay super organized. Name your layers, organize them, move them around, and really sort of plan things out. And of course, since you're working digitally, if you make a mistake, you don't like the way something's coming out, you can always delete things and start over. So give yourself a lot of time this week to work on it. It is really the only thing you're working on this week, other than going to do the typographic anatomy quiz, which should not take you more than like 10-15 minutes. The rest of the week is working on this vector celebrity portrait. And then in your free time, for your textbook reading, read through the Preparing Images handout that I gave you. And then that's it for this week. So really focus on that one thing, vector celebrity portrait. Next week, we are going to wrap some stuff up and introduce Adobe XD, which we'll talk about for the remainder of the semester. All right, well, enjoy your vector celebrity portrait. I can't wait to see what you guys do, and I'll be back in touch soon. If you need me, get me on email, drop into my online office hours. All right, see you soon.